Let's look at managing your finances in retirement in terms of things like avoiding running out of money and avoiding paying too much tax. We're going to look at the best order to access your wealth and make sure you have an enjoyable retirement. And it's not just for those who are already retired. Those who are saving for retirement will learn a lot too. To avoid running out of money in retirement, you need to have careful planning. You need to construct a glide path for your wealth, how much you're going to accumulate, and then how you expect to see it decrease over time once you're retired. If you're above the glide path, you can spend the money, you can give the money to your children so that you're dealing with some inheritance issues early on, or you could move the money from a risk-on asset, which is the stock market, towards a risk-off asset, such as maybe a cash ISA or some short-term UK government bond. Retirement planning requires careful budgeting, and there's often considered 3 phases of retirement. The first of which is called the go-go years, where you have a bucket list and you tick off items you've always wanted to do. The second phase is the go slow years, where you're more settled into a routine, you know what you like. And then the third phase is called the no-go years, where you're maybe in your late 80s, you don't drive a car anymore, and life is very simple, and you look back on all the wonderful things you've done with a smug smile on your face. As you spend in retirement what you've saved while you're working, planning ahead for your retirement is vital. In retirement, ideally, you've got many sources of income. You might have a defined contribution pension, could be a workplace one or a personal one you set up yourself. You might be lucky and have a defined benefit pension. You'll have the state pension. You might have rental property. There might be some part-time work you do occasionally, maybe in peak summer periods or around Christmas. You should have some kind of side hustle, some kind of little scheme that you're working on that might earn a bit of pocket money, and you might have investment income from things like a taxable savings account. So you need to take your income from these various sources in such a way that you minimize tax. And particularly in the early years of retirement, you might pay no tax at all, particularly if you're living off of an ISA. To utilize your personal allowance in the first few years of retirement before the state pension kicks in, you can ideally have some kind of side hustle going on, or you can take money from a personal pension to fill up the personal allowance. Pensions are accessed in one of 2 ways. The first is called Flexi Access Drawdown, where typically you take the tax-free cash first, as shown in the dark blue in this image. The other way is called UFPLS, where you take your pension in the form of 25% tax-free and the other 75% taxed at your marginal rate. So a typical way to access a pension before the state pension kicks in is to take the personal allowance, $12,570 from your pension, and then under UFPLS you will get £4,190 coming to you tax-free, so that's $16,760 in total. And then if you need any more money, you can take that maybe from an ISA if you have it. So UFPLS can be useful in the first few years of retirement, but after that you might find Flexi Access Drawdown is better because it'll mean you're paying less tax initially. So here's an illustration of tax paid under FAD, which is the blue line, and UFPLS, which is the red line. So with FAD, the blue line, initially there's no tax being paid up until 2041 because we're front-end loading all of the tax-free cash. And then when that's run out, we have a bit of a spike in the tax that we pay. And then ultimately the tax that we pay equalizes with UFPLS because the UFPLS has also run out of tax-free cash in the year 2059. So with UFPLS, it's more smoothing the tax that's paid over the rest of your life. And with FAD, in the initial years, you're saving tax. And so if you can then invest that money effectively, you might find that you have more wealth under flexi access drawdown because you didn't pay tax in early years and that was beneficial. There's an order of drawdown of assets in retirement. So initially you'll want to utilize your personal allowance. This might come from rental property income, state or defined benefit pensions, or maybe a workplace pension. Then you want to take from taxable savings because of the taxes on any dividends or any interest. Then you want to take from your ISA because the ISA is tax-free, but it is subject to inheritance tax. And then finally, you'll want to take from a defined contribution pension up to the 20% tax limit, and then if necessary, defined contribution at higher rates of marginal tax. 4% rule is commonly quoted when managing your finances in retirement. It states that you should aim to live off 4% of your wealth, and then you only have about a 5% chance of running out of money. But the problem with the 4% rule is that it ignores taxation and it ignores the state pension. So it's not that reliable as an indicator across the whole of your life in retirement, and you're much better off having some kind of model help you ascertain the optimal amount of money that you can take from your retirement pot, both in early years and possibly lesser amounts in later years. Pension contributions that you can make in later life are £60,000 as a maximum if you've only taken tax-free cash from a defined contribution pension, or you've only taken from a defined benefit pension and you do have enough earned income. They drop to £10,000, the money purchase annual allowance, if you've taken taxable cash from a pension under UFPLS and have enough earned income. And you can put in £2,880, which will get grossed up to £3,600 if you're under 75, even if you have no earned income and even if you are taking money from all kinds of pensions. When you're investing your money and you're working, typically you'll have only a risk-on asset such as a global tracker, and then you might have an emergency fund of maybe 6 months worth of expenditure in case you lose your job. However, once you retire, you'll want to utilize risk-off assets in case there is a stock market downturn. And these assets include things like money market funds, bonds, gold, real estate, infrastructure, and you want to have a proportion of your investments in those. Or you could hold what's called a risk neutral asset, which is maybe something that is mixed between equities and bonds, or an absolute return fund that aims to generate the same level of return no matter what the stock market conditions are. So investing when you're in retirement is a bit more complicated than when you're working. The important thing about managing your finances in retirement is not to panic. Have a well-defined plan and stick to it. In retirement, you'll want to look at taking care of your dependents. And I think the best way to do this is to start things like a junior SIP or a junior ISA for them, drip feed money into these investment vehicles and let your dependents watch the money grow over time and let them learn about the power of compounding. I think this is preferable to leaving them a huge lump sum upon your death when they might be quite old themselves and not maybe have such a need for it, or telling them that there's something like £50,000 if they want to buy a house and need money for a deposit, because this way of leaving money for your dependents can put a bit of a strain on your finances because you've suddenly got to find large lump sums for your children. To avoid running out of money in retirement, you could see a financial advisor, you could buy an annuity, or you could construct a plan either on your own or with the help of a coach. Annuities are often seen as poor value for money, and financial advisors can be incredibly expensive. And so this leads to what is known as an advice gap, where people want someone to check over what's going on, but they either don't trust financial advisors or won't pay the extortionate fees. Financial coaches can fill this advice gap, but you need to check the credentials of a financial coach. So someone like myself is a qualified accountant with over 30 years experience, and you can look me up on LinkedIn. And you also need to check through the quality of the work that they are putting on their website or on their YouTube channel. My retirement calculator is a fully customizable and transparent spreadsheet. It will show your wealth over time. It will show how you fund your retirement in terms of utilizing tax-free cash, ISAs, state pension, other pensions. It will show the tax you pay in retirement and your marginal tax rate, so it can highlight if there's any years where you're paying 40% tax, and then I can come up with some strategies to try to avoid that. You can also track the percentage of your pension assets that you're withdrawing over time and compare that to a target range. You can enter different combinations of ages to retire and expenditure in retirement to get the optimal solution for you. To effectively manage your finances in retirement, don't take too much as a percentage of your assets in any one year. Respect the order of drawdown to minimize tax, and use flexible access drawdown if you have large lump sums of expenditure. You can monetize a passion in retirement, and that way you can get income coming in for doing work that you enjoy anyway. And in later life, you can look at things like maybe downsizing your house or buying an annuity, because annuity rates get better over time. And you can consider using a coach to help you navigate the complex minefield of retirement finances. I've put together a retirement planning checklist which you can get free access to when you sign up to my newsletter. A coach like myself can be a valuable sounding board for your retirement plans. The best way to learn about managing finances in retirement is to look at case studies, and I recommend you check out this video next.